I heard he had terrible marks, and he ends up in Harvard. He wrote a book that was better than Ernest Hemingway, but his second book was written by an average person. He shouldn't have written the second book.
You suspect Bill Ayers wrote it?
I'd say Bill Ayers wrote the book.
Why do you think it's Bill Ayers?
Because everyone says he's a super genius, and he was a great writer. And Bill Ayers just came out recently because he's not in love with Obama, because like Obama dropped Reverend Wright like a dog, he dropped him like a dog. You know, for 20 years he's in Reverend Wright's congregation, okay? I'm Protestant, and I understand. He's in Reverend Wright's congregation for 20 years, listening to Reverend Wright spew hate against white people. And all of a sudden he drops him like a dog. And Reverend Wright hates him now, actually hates him from what I hear.
Well, he said,
but the same thing with Bill Ayers. The same thing with Bill Ayers. He was best friends with Bill Ayers. Bill Ayers was a super genius, and a lot of people have said he wrote the book. Well, recently, as you know, last week, Bill Ayers came out and said he did write the book. Barack Obama wouldn't be president, and you know, I wrote many bestsellers, and also #1 bestsellers, including The Art of the Deal. I know something about writing, and I want to tell you, the guy that wrote the first book didn't write the second book. Obama made a big mistake when he wrote the second book, because the second book was not Ernest Hemingway. It was about 37 classes below. So the first book is Ernest Hemingway plus. The second book was written by somebody that was much more average. How do you have average marks? How do you have bad marks and get into Harvard?
Let me go back to the issue, because I want to talk about media coverage of Obama. Because you're going to have full coverage of your finances, every woman that you've dated, your marriages, all that's going to come up. Fair game?
Well, I think it's fair, but I do also think this. My finances are great. I think when you get into social things, I just think this country has big problems. And I sit down and I look at the problems of this country, and I just think that we have more important things to discuss with, like...
Than who you dated.
Yeah, than who I dated or who... And you know what? I have unbelievable great relationships with a lot of people, and I have a great relationship with my wife. But we really... That's the problem with this process. In China, they picked the meanest, toughest, smartest guy. Ruthless, and he's our negotiator. In this country, we pick a guy that's never had a problem, never done anything. I mean, look at Obama. Obama had bad marks, and he gets into Harvard. Okay? He wasn't a good student. You know, everyone thinks he was like the super genius. He wasn't a genius. He had bad marks, and it's a big story. Everyone says, how did he get into Harvard? How did he get into Columbia? He had horrible marks, supposedly.
Why are they hiding some of his records and his thesis?
He doesn't release his marks. Nobody knows what his marks, but everybody said, because there was some list where his marks were lousy, and yet he gets into Harvard. I mean, this guy really is leading a charmed life. I have to be honest with you. Somebody said, what's his biggest asset? He is lucky politically. He really is.
Well,
he's led a charmed life.
I mean, this is...
Well, the media is letting him get away with it. Right. I'll give you an example, a better example. Tony Rezko. If you did Tony Rezko, you'd be in jail right now.
I believe it.
Tony Rezko is his pretty much mentor, was his big political contributor. There was another guy he dropped like a hot rock. So you got Reverend Wright, you got Bill Ayers, you got Tony Rezko. He drops these guys, and the press leaves him alone. He buys a house, and then Tony Rezko, his biggest political supporter, who's in jail and a mobster, buys the lot next to it. Now, I'm a great real estate guy. I made a lot of money. You'll see, maybe, assuming I run, okay? You're going to see. You're going to love it. You'll be very impressed with my numbers. I'm a really good real estate guy. Yeah. But he buys the house next door, the lot next door. Obama wants to expand his house. So Rezko sells him a little chunk of that lot at, from what I can see, under market value.
Rendering his lot unbuildable.
Rendering Rezko's lot either unbuildable or nobody wants it. Nobody wants to have, hey, Mr. Schwartz goes up to buy the house next door, and they say, well, what happened to the back of it? I mean, where's the back of my lot? I don't want to buy this lot. So Rezko gives him a piece under market, and more importantly, destroys the value of the lot he has. Now, when I heard that, I said, oh, that's the end of his campaign. He's out. Because if it was you, me, or anybody else. So here's a guy, did one deal in his entire life, and it was Tony Rezko. That's the only deal he's ever done. It's pretty amazing how nothing happened. And it's pretty amazing how Rezko is in jail now, and he never ratted out Obama.